Ravi's in a much better mood because he feels like his rant, I'm sorry, his human filibuster is now
We
substantiated,
like to call it a monologue.
was substantiated by Coach Rhule, lamenting over how much he appreciates and loves Nebraska.
Yeah, stealing from Robbie's paper again. Rule.
Everybody copies off the smart kid. But BC, all jokes aside, man, we started this conversation, you and I, a couple weeks ago about camping, and we were talking about Marty and a whole multitude of things. And I'm like, guys, the thing that we're missing, whether it's in state or out of state, is I think you have to love this place as much as they do, or it's going to be tough to meet you halfway, right? Like, and he kind of doubled down on that sentiment with your former colleague the other day, didn't he? Or is that not what you heard about his affinity for Nebraska and the toughest thing that he had to overcome, that he thinks they have to overcome?
No, I think that's true. I mean, we've heard it for as long as I've interviewed recruits. It's always I just thought it was cornfields and this and that. There is definitely a particular picture someone who hasn't been here has of the place, and it usually is dramatically flipped when they actually visit Nebraska, especially if they land in Omaha, they see that, and then they see the downtown of Lincoln and the rail yard and the arena and all that, and then just the facilities that surround it. But I also think the people, there is a sense, if you can get on the ground in Lincoln, that it matters a lot here. The particular craft that they're most interested in at this point in their life, football, just matters a lot to a lot of people, and you can feel that. I think when you're inside the building, when you're outside the building, it's sort of around you. If you're here for 24 to 48 hours, you'll pick up on that in some way. And so if I'm a prospect that wants to go to some place to get better, but also it's sort of like, man, they're really going to be into this like every step of the way with me, whether from my recruitment all the way through my career, they're going to follow this closely. I think that comes across to people, and yeah, you want them to sense like this is a special place in a lot of ways, and I want to be a part of it. So it does tend to dramatically flip guys' opinions though once they get here.
Brian, DB's mentioned a couple times that he feels like, and this is sort of where he started with his question, is he feels like they want the recruits to be at Nebraska or to love Nebraska as much as they do. And I'm curious if anything you've heard from recruits when you're talking to them or looking through how they describe visits or how they describe their relationship with Nebraska, if that comes across at all.
Yeah, it definitely does. You know what, I guess the word I would circle back to that I've heard Rhule bring up a few times this off season that's caught my ear is gratitude.
Mhm.
And um, I think he just, like, for instance, Marquez Watson Trent, we're talking about a different type of player here, but someone who came from Georgia Southern, where they don't have the same resources and everything that they have in Lincoln. And he gets here on the ground and it's like, man, this is incredible. Like, it just blows his mind, and it is special to him. And you don't want to take it for granted. And so I think there's definitely, this is just me picking up on what he says through the interviews. There's a feeling like I want guys who see like actually how good you have it here, the opportunities it will present to make you better, but an appreciation for it. There is an unbelievable, like, you could talk about the nutrition department alone with Kristen Coggan. And if I were a recruit, that would be a huge sell to me. One of the big points of where I'd be like, man, I got to think about that, just the way they treat that aspect. But it goes across the board with different things. And so when people are visiting and they see these 6 or 7 different things that sort of line up where people really care about it and can grow them as a player and a person, you would hope that there's this feeling of being grateful for that opportunity and wanting to make the most of it. And then ideally wanting to sell that to other people, which is Trey Taylor's kind of doing in the 27 class. There's guys all over that building who are on the team like Tyler Kanak who do that when people come in And I think that's a big deal too, is when you get the players telling other people coming in, like, this really is an interesting place for this reason and that reason, and this is how I grew in this particular area, and this person over here, you got to meet them. That's a big deal when it's all said and done, because it is those relationships. I think with all that we talk about everything else, it's still the relationships and connections when you're inside the facilities that matter the most.
B Sizzle, you know what's funny? I just been listening to that. And you have to be like that on his staff too. How quickly did we hear Coach Holgerson almost do the exact same thing? And he used specific players. He was talking about Hunter leaving Cal, and this is a great place to be, and it's not like this everywhere else. I mean, this was just like, I don't know, what was that, like 3.5 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Said that.
Mhm.
And I looked at Ravi after he said that, and I go, do you know how many places Coach? I mean, this guy vacations in the Riviera, right?
Mhm.
Like, he's been a ton of, and I'm not comparing it to vacation destinations. I'm saying, he's been a lot of places with comps, and he's been successful. So at this stage in his career, with a program that hasn't won a ton as of late, for him to openly say those things out loud to try to see what to get other players to understand how special this is, they either have to be equally yoked right off the bat, like you hired him and he thought that, or the longer he's been there and been around this program, it's just become the way he thinks. But either way, when the adults in the room feel like that, like that's when the magic happens.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just everything you need is right here. Like, for a player, it's like it's right in front of you, and if you are ready to take advantage of it, it's a great spot for you. Now, you got to be careful. You don't want to get fat and happy. There's some people who would say there's.
That's
guess
where his personality fits, because he's
Mhm.
so he's kind of a wear out is a negative term, but he's never satisfied.
Yeah. Because there is a thing, Damon, I suppose, that you have it too good. Like, like that's the setup is so shiny and everything is so nice around you, where, there's that old, you're not getting your Rocky IV training in or whatever, where you go into the log cabin and you're doing all your fancy jump roping and all that stuff. But so you got to, I guess, kind of guard against guys getting fat and happy with it. But I think that goes back to just that's where you're looking for that spark in someone, where there's gratitude. It's like they're not going to take that for granted. It's going to be something that it's like, man, this is a real blessing that to this, everything in my life that I've worked for has led me to this place where now I have the resources where I can do it if I go after it. But I'm not going to misuse it. So you're looking for those guys who, and then I think it always comes back to, I think at this day and age, you're trying to figure out who loves football. I think that's always been the thing, where it's like everybody who comes up that's at this level was the best player as a sophomore in high school or junior in high school, just because of their God-given traits. But who just loves the game inside and out and wants to, Javen Wright used the word immerse yourself in it, like he wants to do this season under John Butler. Like, you got to find those type of guys, I think, who kind of crave it and want to see the little things on film that separate this player from that player at this level. And so you're trying to, I think, pick up on that too, on those visits, not only how they receive the resources around them, but how they receive the teaching at the camps and film study and any of that stuff you can get around them with football. Like, are they that person that is just inquisitive and wants to know the next thing from you?
All right, let me ask you something, B. You just keep saying these things. I'm sorry, Robbie.
Saying these things, yeah, that's about right.
So, how interesting is it, or maybe it's simple versus easy, that just the simple perspective that you have on the same, multiple people can have different perspectives on the same thing that you could actually now use as a strength, right? Because we've heard coaches in the past talk about the disadvantages, or we've heard we need more ready-made guys, or well, this place is never going to be this, or like we've heard coaches say these things out loud. but they're talking about the same place. And I guess the facilities are a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But even relative to when those coaches were here, the facilities were still pretty good.
Yeah, they were never bad.
They were never bad.
Yeah.
Are you surprised or like, well, no, that somebody can be looking at the very same thing and have such a contrast in perspective to try to get this thing as kind of the catalyst or the kickstart to define the culture?
I'm not surprised, but one of my favorite things that Rhule does is he highlights this is great to be in the middle of the country for this reason and that reason, and he'll lay it out like with the travel and various things, and like he finds the positives and really highlights them. Yeah. I mean, I just think like I've heard other coaches sort of I think they stumble down the road where they get a little negative about some of the disadvantages you could bring up or the challenges. And I don't think he does that a lot, which is a smart move. And I don't want to get in a compare game with him and this other coach over there, but I do think like he's more looking like what can I do with what I have rather than what I can't do. I'm not going to talk about that. Like, and he talks about that with players too, like with Eckler brought that up. It's like, what can you get out of this guy? What can he give to you? It's not what he can't do. What can he do? And I think you got to take that same approach you're using with like a player that you're looking at, and you're looking at the place you're at, the building you're at, the people that are around it, how the fan base is. What can I do with that is useful, as opposed to what are maybe some hindrances that, yeah, I could talk about those out loud because there are those things. But what advantage is that to me in this program if I do that? And I think he does a good job of distancing himself from getting into those conversations or going down that avenue.
You know, what's interesting as we're talking here, BC, is you asked a question that I try and ask myself a lot is when people do things that I don't understand, what is the advantage that it has to them? And so when you're the head football coach at Nebraska and you talk positively about Nebraska, that makes sense, right? You're trying to get people to come here and to send their kids here. That makes sense. If you're the head football coach at Nebraska and you're talking negatively about Nebraska, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what's the upside for you there? And then I remembered, oh, yeah, it's a built-in excuse in case you don't win more, right? Like that's part of this unsaid thing that we appreciate about what Rhule's doing is he's not leaving himself a lot of outs if it doesn't work out. Like he's not leaving himself a lot of wiggle room if it doesn't go the way he or us want it to. And I think, and maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's a state thing, maybe it's just a me thing. I do think there's a part of us that appreciates that, where it's instead of kind of building an excuse path to say, hey, this is why it didn't work out, or this is why we couldn't get past 9 wins, or whatever the mark is, to saying, hey, yeah, no, I've got everything I need to win big here, and we're going to give that a shot.
Yeah, I mean, he has said that from the jump. I mean, he said when he was looking at this job, that's one of the reasons why it was appealing to him. He was thinking about where college football could be headed, the various obstacles or unknowns that might be out there. And as he talked it through with Trev and the powers that be, I think there was a thought like, you know what? They're pretty well positioned financially. Actually, I can see the advantages of the geography of where they're at. As this, we have leagues now that expand from coast to coast and all that. It's actually an advantage to be right in the middle of it, and then highlighting it and going from there. But and then adjusting on the fly. Like he's obviously had to make changes. He's even acknowledged like how he's changed and how they viewed the portal somewhat since he's gotten here, and with the 105 roster coming in, that's been something that he's had to shift, I think, with things. But that's my biggest compliment to them, is that I don't think they get caught up complaining about the ground shifting underneath their feet. And I do think there's probably coaches that would do that or are doing that, and they're going to get left behind. Yeah, I mean, that's just the bottom line. So we'll see if it's got to translate to the W's. We all know that. It's patted on the back off season time, but I do think he's, as far as just like his mindset and the way he operates in this current climate of college sports, I really think I think he's the right guy in this moment with his mindset for dealing with all these just uncertainties and like not getting obsessed with the things that some of us would be like, I don't like that this is happening. I'm like that. Like I get frustrated with college sports and some of the stuff that's going on. But if you're in that job, what good is that to do to beat your head against the wall about this thing or that thing? You just look at what is you can use and what can be beneficial to your program. And I think that's his kind of outlook.
I just gravitate towards that where people are in the solutions business. Okay, this is the current landscape. Now, how do we function at a high level, right? I talk about that with Coach Rhule all the time. That's one of the reasons why I love him. I think we have a boss here that is very, very similar. That's very quick to want to roll with the times and figure out how to function at a high level, given what he has to deal with. And it's weird because sometimes, BC, we find ourselves like, whether it's your message boards or the fan base, or I mean, just like our Mondays brief little whatever that was. Sometimes when people, like, when they roll their eyes over the roots, like, everybody can tell you what the outcome was. Very few people want to talk about how we got here.
Mhm.
Right? And it could be relational, it could be sports. It's just like, well, he fouled it, with 2 seconds to go. I can't believe he did that. And it's like, well, how'd we get there, right?
Yeah.
So with this, I don't think it's an eye roll moment, because if you do call yourself a developmental program, which they do, you are about patience and the 1, the 2, the 3 year impact program, which they talk about. The being appreciative of where you are, and this is a great place to be. You can't function under duress unless something is more important than the outcome. Like, I truly believe that, not over the long haul. And so I don't know why we would roll our eyes about the whole bigger than the individual thing if you really want to win, because I think you have to start there if you're going to win at Nebraska.
Mhm.
I don't know any other way around. You're not competing from a talent standpoint with that top 10%. You need a secret superpower, one that you can control too.
Yeah. He was kind of talking about that too within this specific team last night on the radio with Jessica about just the crucial aspect of these summer months and having that basically that tight brotherhood where you are doing it for something bigger, where there's that tight bond that where he was saying there is adversity that's going to strike. And he brought up, it's a good example. Notre Dame had a really bad Saturday on one of Nebraska's best Saturdays in a while when Nebraska blitzed Colorado here, and Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois. They had the right stuff within the makeup of that unit in South Bend last year to dust themselves off, help each other out as brothers and move on and become one of the best teams in the country. And he knows that moment's going to arrive, and it could happen very soon this year. I think they're going to have a tough game right off the bat at Arrowhead. I'm not looking past that one at all. And there's going to be a moment where you have to respond. And so all this stuff, like in June and July and that stuff, where those guys, like when Dylan Rhule or whomever it is coming to you and saying, hey, we on our own want to form a leadership group to do this. And Rhule, according to his interview last night, sort of waved him off. He's like, go do it. Do it. I want you to be that player leadership group. Just do it. And, I think, I really do think you'd have to say, and I know people get tired of the culture word, but it matters so much. And
stop talking to those people, BC.
Yeah, well, I don't worry. I'm just saying I know that it's out there, but it does matter so much. And the one thing you'd have to say you could measure really well that says this culture is hitting pretty well is there's actually very few people leaving this program.
It's all of a sudden become a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah, I mean, the examples of guys who have left are all understandable usually because they're like, like he just sees a little bit better chance to play, and Rhule's talked about that too, and they're not against that. But you're not seeing guys just head out the door who are like in their second year because they're still like second or third team at this point. Now we'll see how it goes over the next year or so. Things can shift, But so far, there is an actual measurement we can use that shows that like guys are sort of believing in the process and that they can get built up in this program, because if they weren't that way, we would see it and have written 10 more portal stories a couple weeks ago. We didn't.
I mean, BC, it's funny because how long ago was it that people in this state thought that you couldn't recruit the state of Florida because Florida kids just didn't want to be here, right? Like that was a narrative.
After we had the mass exodus?
Yeah, that was a narrative during the last administration, right? That it was just, you got to be careful with those Florida kids. Can't get them to stay here. They don't like the cold weather, whatever it was, right? How many Florida kids on the roster right now, BC?
Yeah, I don't know the number, but we know there's 5 or 6 that are hidden from Miami, like in the last cycle, and it's a nice clip going.
And not just that, but then you've got them talking about, I think Cortez Mills was talking about how Ja'Cory Barney was telling everybody what a cool place it is to be and things like that. Like it's not. We thought this was less than 5 years ago. We thought that like Miami kids were kind of just like off the menu for us. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, probably not going to work out here. And all of a sudden, that's a major hotbed of Nebraska recruiting. Like, if the culture doesn't matter, why is that? Like, how did that change? Right? Nobody from Florida wanted to stay here 3, 4, 5 years ago. Now, these guys can't stop telling their friends about how great it is here. Like, that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's a good point. And now, you hope that process builds up and it helps you in those tighter moments and you get over the top in some of these close games. And that's ultimately, and everybody over there knows that's how it's going to be judged. They've got to make some steps with wins and losses. But as far as how it's tracking, as far as just guys believing in their process, and even the way they talk about mat drills, like guys, I mean, it's probably something they don't love, but you can tell they actually do kind of love it in a way. Like after it's, like I went through that
after it's over,
and I get that, but there's an understanding of like, man, this sucks, but I get what the end game is here. And now in year 3, that there's more of that understanding. And so you've got guys who have done it 2 or 3 times and they're telling the new guy, just fight through it. Like Isaiah Hunter struggled in mat drills. We were told that. And, but at the end of it, he said, that was good. I understand why we did it. And he had a good spring. And then maybe next year, like he can push someone else who's scuffling along through their first version of it. So that's what you're hoping you're building.
BC, when you're talking about, do you like the fact, or is it kind of one of those things like, I don't know, that they talk so openly about what it takes to get over the hump and some of these close games that seems to be focused on we just need to be better, right? Like they've just kind of thrown all the other variables out.
You have to take the boogeyman out of it, right? Like you have to take the boogeyman out of the situation.
Like, yep, so exactly.
We just need to be better.
Yeah.
Like that, they're pretty candid about that, because that's also an indictment too, and you have to be secure enough to eat that.
To say we haven't been good enough.
We haven't been good enough. Okay, well, what part of that can we control? Like, I just think there's power in that. In kind of the failure, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you control it, not what somebody did in 2019 or what happened in a drive 2 years ago. And I do always think it helps when you get some new blood with some of these skill position guys that doesn't even matter to them. But what's happened in Nebraska's past, they wouldn't even know about some of that stuff. But I think Ravi said the word. It's the boogeyman aspect. It's always like. I know this well as someone who follows Minnesota pro sports. There's an element up there of it can't happen because there's some thing in the clouds that's not going to ever allow it. And that's that thought about like the Vikings. And that's why I love like Kevin O'Connell, who I know like Rhule's doing some speaking event where O'Connell's going to be at. But that's what I love about him is he's just a positive guy who's like, that's not my story. What happened here, at this point to this program or operation. So, and you got to just get your guys to let's make a few more plays. You write your own script basically.
That's our guy, BC Husker247. Brian, we appreciate the time as always. Good stuff. We'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, B.